This is Coder Radio, episode 88 for February 10th, 2014. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our three fine sponsors, GoDaddy, Ting, and DigitalOcean. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this fantastic show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, our excellent host, I should say, on the East Coast, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey there, Michael. How's the snow? How's the weather over there?
Wonderful.
Yeah. Have you been in like a winter apocalypse?
So, it hasn't been quite the apocalypse that Sandy was. I mean, that was truly like,
literally
flashback style apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's just been, I don't know if you know this, but, in the last decade, New Jersey hasn't had a really severe winter. I mean, last year was kind of rough, but other than that, we really haven't had much.
Mm-hmm.
So people's tolerance for snow is
like they forget how
like virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It snowed here yesterday, and it shut down the city for the whole day.
Basically, my week last week and partially the week before was like at least 50% shut down.
So is that a good thing, or is that just basically become a stressful thing? Because like sometimes
it becomes a stressful thing for me.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, of course, projects get delayed, sales get put off, meetings get canceled, and I have this weird theory that the longer, particularly on the bidding process, the longer the process goes, the less likely you are to actually close them.
Yep, and the more likely they get cold feet or change their minds.
Right.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
So it's kind of a disaster. Also because it's super inconvenient. It's not like a day off where I can, like if this happened in the summer and people just arbitrarily took half of 2 weeks off, I lived near the beach, I'd go to the beach, I would actually do something fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you, a couple of weeks ago when Gmail had an outage for about a half hour, I was like, this is like a snow day. It was awesome because I couldn't work. So I just got up, made some phone calls, and this was an incredible feeling. But if it had gone on for much more than an hour or so, that level of being shut down, it's like it starts to hurt. It starts to hurt. I feel your pain. Thankfully, here the snow's already pretty much melted. I mean, we came and it went.
It's pretty much melted here. Now we're at that weird phase where people know, this is going to be pretty much it. So they're abusing it one more time to take a day off or to get a snow day. We may get more on Wednesday, but it's all going to be fairly trivial according to the Yahoo weather. But it's funny because the roads are icy. I'm like, yeah, were they icy Saturday? Because I think everybody was out on the road. All
right, is your phone icy? What about your email?
Yeah.
Is that icy?
Yeah, so it's...
yeah.
It's kind of...
it's ice everywhere!
Well, I understand it because, particularly we're coming on tax season, so I know a lot of the types of people I deal with are going to be very pressured.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, Barack, we need to talk.
He's a jackass.
So the thing with taxes is they need to not go higher. You're going the wrong way.
Yeah, because you know why?
It's negative in the freedom dimension.
You know what's going to happen?
I think that we should all make those businesses fail.
Oh, there you go.
That might happen, yes. I can neither conform nor deny that I've been doing my books and crying myself to sleep.
I can confirm that. Well, why don't we warm up with our first email here? Why don't we just, this'll make us feel better. Matthew wrote in. He says, Dear Coffee Radio, I ran across this article while listening to the latest Coder Radio show and thought it was of interest. I've recently purchased my first batch of green coffee, the Ethiopian Hyundai oil variety, with the purpose of cutting the middleman out and getting the great taste in my own hands. Just need the time to roast it now. I guess that's the next logical step for you as well, right? Great show as always, although I'm not sure about all the coding talk interrupting the coffee goodness. What's with that? And he includes a link to the biggest coffee drinkers by country. So that's what I'm drinking something. You grab the bag right now. I tell you what, I would not even. I don't even think I'd be sitting up at this chair right now if it wasn't for this great coffee. I mean, this is saving the day these days.
Yeah, I mean, I had an entire French press this morning. though I don't have any right now because I'm trying not to kill myself.
Yeah, I'm trying not to overdo it because that is an urge I have sometimes when I'm really tired is to drink too much.
I tracked it last week. I'm drinking roughly 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep it down to 4.
Here, I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab the bag because it's really good.
Yeah.
One was sent in to me by Heimer16. Heimer16, he's often in our chat room during the Coda Radio program. And this here is as green as it gets. As green as it gets coffee is pure, shade-grown, Arabian, coffee grown in the mountains of Guatemala. And, oh, man, it smells so good. So I've just been taking a little bit out every day, grinding it up, and putting it in the AeroPress. And, I've been thinking, too, I never really understood why people spend so much money on coffee at coffee shops. Like, it just seems like such a money sink, like at Starbucks and whatnot. But
Starbucks coffee is a whole nother issue, but
like if the coffee was really good, I could kind of see it because like this is a really nice part of my morning now. And the only thing I don't like about it is like my electric kettle takes like 10 to 15 minutes to get to temperature, and it's
you have an electric kettle?
Well, what?
Yeah, I'm just boiling water in a pot.
That's what I was gonna do, but then I noticed that people who really get into their coffee later on appreciate like the precision temperature control, and like different beans can taste better at different temperatures. So I wanted the ability to say 190, or whatever, like and just set it right on the money. An electric kettle is nice in the sense that I can just walk away and know it's not going to get too hot, which is good, but it just takes forever to get going. So that's the downside.
So, while we're on the coffee thing, I should definitely thank Jonathan Meek and Florian, whose last name I don't know if I can say because I don't think he gave me permission, for sending me the coffee last week. Or a few weeks ago. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
One was a very dark roast and one was a more medium roast.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like it was weird because they almost came on this. They came in the same week. I think one was like a Monday and one was a Tuesday. So it was like, oh, now I can pair these off against each other. Great.
Yeah, it is really fun. It's the other thing. So I've been sent a few bags too, and the thing that's really great about it is like I'm such a coffee noob that I'd have no idea. Yeah. Like just to test out my whole like system, I bought a bag off Amazon, and I know that's and now that since I've gotten these bags of coffee from the listeners, I've never even gone back to that bag from Amazon. It's like, okay, I know that's bad.
So I've subscribed to a service called Tonks. Now, Tonks sponsors podcasts that don't equal this one.
That's true.
But I'm going to be cool and link them in the chat room anyway.
I've heard about Tonks from some of those other podcasts, and that's what I was kind of thinking is once the listeners are no longer having fun sending us coffee, I thought because I probably can't ride that train forever. It's been awesome so far, but eventually I might have to switch out to Tonks or something.
It's actually, I tried it out because they had a trial, and it was surprisingly good.
What is good about it? Because it's like, isn't it? It's like a coffee of the month club kind of a thing, right?
That's exactly what it is. It's so they give. I think it's like a half pound or a quarter pound of the coffee of the month, but it's super fresh. And right now they're sending very earthy South American coffees.
Yeah,
and I'm just loving it.
It makes sense that if you had a subscription-based model, then you would know, okay, we can afford to go buy these crops. We can afford to go to these places. Like they can budget and forecast because of the subscription model. So I actually, the business structure of it makes sense to me.
Yeah, the only thing that I found a little frustrating is, so they sent me one, I believe 2 weeks ago that I really liked. And I tried to contact them to purchase it, to, try to do like an out-of-band purchase of more.
Yeah.
With the same roast.
Were they out?
And it doesn't seem to be possible. But not only does it not seem to be possible, I didn't actually get a response, which was annoying.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so they got different plans. I see.
Yeah, so they're I think from what I see on their site and what I've heard from others is they're pretty serious about it just being a subscription. Yeah. And you can't like say I like this month's, but which seems like a terrible business decision. But.
Yeah, it does seem like you want to be able to buy more, but then I guess if they're trying to keep their costs and they buy as much as their subscribers call for, it's kind of a hard line to walk, I guess.
Yeah, because I'm on the lowest subscription, so it's maybe a couple French presses worth, but
it seems to me like though you totally would eventually they'd send you a bean that you just absolutely loved and you could drink for the rest of your life potentially. And you'd want to just be able to buy that all the time.
But the problem is there's no way to do that.
Yeah, that I could see that is a little wonky.
I mean, if somebody from Tonks is listening or someone knows somebody from Tonks, if I'm wrong, I would love to be wrong.
I think you could also they have different prices there. Like you could go for like the cheaper one, Like the $12 a month.
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
And then so that's your variety. So that's how you get your guaranteed high quality variety. And then if you find a staple you like, you could always buy it from another outlet and still get a little variety on the side for.
So that's the problem. I haven't been able to find. I think they relabel it or something. I think it's like one of those things where you can buy expensive wine under a different label, but they won't tell you the original label.
Well, I wonder how they're buying it. Like maybe they're buying it directly from the people.
I think they're buying it from the
growers,
roasters,
or okay, yeah.
So it's. I mean, they tell you about the coffee, and they all have a story about a small local grower in the box.
These guys should, So one of the best ways to have a company who's a really good fit sponsor a podcast is if the audience reaches out on Twitter or something, says, "Hey, check out this podcast. They'd be a great fit for you because they talk about development and coffee." Because I think Tonks would be a great fit because I'd love to try a little.
But I promise we will not talk about Mercedes or BMWs. Draw on the line. But let's talk about the Ford Fusion.
Actually, why don't we take a moment right here and talk about Ting? Because Ting is mobile that makes sense. And I got to tell you, Ting just got better. And if you're a Ting subscriber or if you're thinking about switching to Ting, it just got better. They just slashed their data rates. So what is Ting? Well, think of Ting as a new way to do mobile. They're really coming in. They've looked at the mobile industry and they've said, there is a couple of things that are systemically wrong. These contracts, these early termination fees, and this system where you pay $60, $80, $120 into a plan and maybe you only get $40 of value out of that actual plan, out of $40 worth of usage. So Ting wants to flip all of that on its head. So here's how you get started. Go to coderradio.ting.com. Right there, they have a How Much Would You Save button. Try that out again if you've tried it before. Do me a favor and go over there and try it again. Because now that they have those new data rates, the savings is even greater than before. It is fantastic. You got to check them out. And by the way, every single Ting plan includes tethering, hotspot, caller ID, picture and voice messaging, three-way calling, voicemail, all included as part of the plan. There's no extra surprise charges. If you turn on hotspot and tethering and you just use the data, it makes total sense. And Ting is also just a very, I would say, web savvy, maybe social media savvy company. They're doing giveaways now on their G Plus and YouTube pages. They've just rolled out an iPhone app to let you manage your Ting account from the iPhone, which is a great way to go. And I think that, if you've been considering switching and you haven't pulled the trigger yet, now might be that time. That little voice in the back of your head should be listened to because it's really gotten a lot better. And by the way, Ting's also got an early termination relief program. They're going to help you get out of an existing contract if you're stuck in one now. How great is that? And Ting's got a whole new slew of devices coming, new and used. And because you only pay for the usage, there's no contract, the value on this is so great. So when you buy a phone traditionally from a mobile carrier, you're paying a subsidized price. And the full price of that phone is paid over the life of your contract. And by the time you're at the end of that 2-year contract, the phone is not worth what you're paying it anymore. They kind of make an extra, that's how they make an extra buck off of you. So that changes with Ting. Because you own these devices outright, you can continue to use them even once you've switched to another phone. There's no system that disincentivizes you from keeping your existing phone and using it as a hotspot, giving it to a team member or a family member, because every single line at Ting is just a flat $6, and then you just pay for what you use. And they even have feature phones where you can keep it simple. If you go to coderradio.ting.com, you're going to get that one for $63. Yeah, with no contract and no early termination fee. They've also got MiFi devices with their new data rates even better, including this fancy Netgear Zing that they just did a giveaway on, $139, and you've got a nice MiFi access point with tri-band LTE, which is really phenomenal if you're in an area that has tri-band LTE, an OLED screen on the front, and it supports 802.11n connectivity as well, which is really cool. Especially if you're in a crowded area and you need every kind of advantage you can get. The Netgear Zing is pretty powerful.
Those little MiFi things are amazing.
Very handy just to throw in the bag. And it's great when, with Ting, you're not going to pay into some huge data plan where that thing's just costing you money even when you're not using it. Yeah. You're just going to pay for it when you need to turn it on. And that's where it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I always have one in my briefcase. I just throw it in there because, you know what, if you're not paying just to have it, but you buy the device, there's no reason not to carry it.
Word. So go over to coderradio.ting.com, and a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. I've been, my HTC One's been staying up to date. My Nexus 5, of course, stays up to date. I'm loving it. But they've also, by the way, they now have support for the iPhone 4 and 4S, and they have that new iPhone app.
So I tell you, if they got my my iPhone 7 on there,
Whoa. You're what? I'm sorry, you're what?
I said nothing.
Yeah, because it sounded like maybe you said iPhone 7. But
No, 9. No.
all right. Well, Raging with an 8. It's pretty
Well, this
clever.
should be fun.
Sent in a submission to the Coder Radio subreddit, coderradio.reddit.com. He says a good article on the difference between learning to code and learning computer science.
So, this was a great submission to the subreddit for 2 reasons. A, I want to stop talking about this because it's getting boring and we're talking in circles. It's one of those things where, people who have their position, and they're not going to change nothing. It's going to be hard to change their mind.
And
right?
also, new people coming to the show are kind of playing back the back catalog and jumping into the conversation after. So we're kind of done.
Yeah, so I love having this in the subreddit, and I think I would just want to take this opportunity to close this out right now. This is not going to be a black and white thing. If they're the same, if they're different, if one's better, it ultimately isn't going to matter, right? Everybody's going to have their opinion, and you're not going to get every university in the world to agree to have a certain course. So,
yeah,
it's almost one of those debates that's fun to have to a point.
It's a good intellectual exercise.
But on a practical perspective, literally no one could change this.
Gosh, and then that's kind of sad. So let's not.
Yeah, let's just leave it there.
Yeah. All right. So, but we'll have that link to the show notes if you guys want to read that and kind of, and the conversation can continue there as well.
Absolutely.
So, coderradio.reddit.com. Mark wrote in. Actually, we had a couple of people write in, but I picked Mark's here. He wrote in about the topic of American phones. Remember, last week we were kind of bemoaning that the sale of Motorola Mobility to Lenovo essentially reduces the major hardware players in America to Apple for phones. So, Mark writes, in Coder Radio 87, Michael said that there were no American phone makers left in the market besides Apple. There may not be a big name on the level of other Android makers, but there's also Blue, BLU, which makes Android phones in Florida. Their website is blueproducts.com, and they make a good-looking mid-range Android phone. The only drawback is that they do not have LTE. They do support HSPA Plus up to 42 megabits and use slightly slower processors. They were the best choice of lower-end phones until Moto G came along. Also, Lenovo did a great job with IBM ThinkPads, so they should do the same with Moto phones. Great show, Mark. So have you seen these Blue products?
Yeah, I took a look at them when we got the email. They're very swanky-looking phones.
Yeah, they almost look a little bit like
iPhones.
I was actually going to say
Windows, actually.
Yeah, I was going to some of them. Well, they have one of them looks like a Samsung line of phones. It's got the menu button, though. I actually kind of like that. I miss the menu button. I like
this, actually.
Yeah. So the only problem is I think, a 13-megapixel camera. These actually
look really good.
Yeah, they actually do look pretty good.
Okay, I don't know why this one has 1 gig. I thought it was 16 gigs of RAM.
So this one has a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's pretty good. That's pretty generous. It doesn't say what version of Android. I could do without LTE, although I sure love it. I could do without it if I needed to. The thing is wouldn't it be great if we had a major player like a Motorola or, somebody who really had a substantial market share that was an American company? That would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's more what I was getting at. You can't walk into Verizon, AT&T, or really any carrier and buy a phone like this. Or an American-made phone. One thing that's interesting is I'm just going through their site trying to see what the cost of a phone is. They don't list them on the pages, which is kind of annoying.
Do they sell them directly, or are they trying to sell them to carriers?
Well, they have a buy button, and it doesn't work.
Gosh, you know who needs to team up with these guys is Canonical.
Or Ting. I mean, they just throw it. I mean, what is HS? No, they're not, so they don't support it.
Oh, yeah, because they're HSDPA.
Yeah.
Look at this one, though. Look how much this looks like the HTC One with the silver back and...
Are we looking at the Vivo 448?
I don't know which one this is. I think it's called the Life 1X. It's got a 1080, not a 1920, but a 10... Oh, they just have it backwards. It's a 1920 by 10. So a 1080p display, quad-core processor. Oh, here we go. Android 4.2, with a 2,000 milliamp battery, 5-inch touchscreen, 13-megapixel rear camera, 16 or 32 gigabytes of internal storage. I mean, these actually look extremely competitive. I don't know what the build quality is, but...
They look very nice. I mean, I
don't like the gesture control UI thing they seem to have laid on top of it. Really, it would be perfect because these could be basically...
It would be really cool to get our hands on one of these just to kind of see what the deal is.
I wonder if they have the Play Store on them.
They look like they're stock Android.
Yeah, but then down below they talk about a touch gesture interface. Wow, look at the dash music. It looks exactly like an HTC One with the speaker grill on the front.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Huh. So, well, maybe these guys will get bigger. They seem like...
I mean, these guys look like they... Oh, okay, you can only buy some of their phones. And you can only buy them at bestbuy.com.
Oh. Well...
So these guys have some channel issues.
This is interesting, though. This is a total...
Although unlocked, their Vivo phone, which looks like one of their middle-of-the-range ICS phones, is $200 unlocked.
It is not ICS, though. Is it?
4.0, yeah.
Oh. That's the bad old days of Android.
4.0, that's not that bad.
4.0. Oh.
If you're buying dev phones, that's not terrible.
Oh,
because
no,
you
4.0.
may not have a 4.0 phone.
That's true. Ooh, they got a tablet, too.
It's the tablet.
It's called the Life View Tab.
Oh, that was a tablet? It's a small tablet.
Yeah. Well, good for these guys.
I've been looking for a 10-inch Android tablet that doesn't suck, and that's been a challenge.
CyanogenMod would be a good, now that CyanogenMod Inc. is a thing, that'd be a good link up with them, too. All right, well, we got another email, and this one comes in from Nick, and he's called me out. So remember last week I had like a stomach flu? So Nick says, first up, a message for Chris from the world outside of America. If you're worried about your health, try switching to the type of fruit that doesn't come in a can. Just love you. He's right. I should. You know what it was? Is I just wanted something, and so I just grabbed it. You know that canned fruit, like cherry cocktail crap that's in the crap sauce? Yeah, that was no good.
Right.
All right, question for Mr. D. Every coder has a bad day. When they just aren't getting through the work as fast as normal, or maybe spent a day chasing a bug only to find out it was something subtle but simple that could have been caught in the first 2 minutes. Without wanting to incriminate you with any of your clients, how do you go about billing for those kind of hours? Do you expect them to be part of every project and let your amazing days balance them out? Or do you feel ever compelled to write 1 hour in the books for a job that took you 2 bad day hours? Any thoughts? So like a mistake that maybe is your own fault, or something you should have caught a lot quicker. How do you charge for that?
I try to stick with scope-based billing, so it ends up not mattering. But with hourly billing, if you start getting into the world of not keeping an accurate count of time, you could be in some legal trouble there.
Yeah, that's my contracts have always been by the hour, so that's
right.
Yeah.
So with an hourly contract, the way I've done it is all the time is honest, and of course the client always has the option to fire you.
Right.
And that's basically the least up
for
there.
me, it's always about. So here's the thing: is this is a really good question because I've had the opposite problem too, where. Maybe I'm the guy so when I worked for a contracting firm where I was an employee of the firm and they would send me out to clients, we had about 4 or 5 other guys on the team. And I was usually the fastest on the team at like getting in, getting it resolved and getting out, right? Or building something like, okay, you need a Windows server deployed as a file server, an Active Directory controller and DNS, et cetera, et cetera. All right, I'll have that done and I'm out of there. And whereas the other guys, maybe just rough numbers, would have taken them 6 hours, took me 3 hours. And so my boss was always like, hey, could you bill for a little bit more? So there's always that problem too. But what I always found the best way to avoid problems on either side of it was copious notes. And I can't tell you, I still get emails from past clients who asked what we did back on, August 3rd, 2011. And I will just go open up my notes, copy that section and send it to them. So it's good for billing purposes. And the thing you have to remember, this isn't always the case, but the person who hired you couldn't have done it. Even if it was a simple problem, they couldn't have fixed it. They needed your expertise to track it down and fix it. They required you to be the one to do it. So therefore, they are paying for your time. The value is still there. Even if it was something simple, it would have completely eluded them. They would have been dead in the water. Yeah. You're not manipulating them. You were just inefficient, but that happens. Speaking of inefficient, our next email comes from William. He's writing about Microsoft's new CEO. He says, hi, guys. I've been a long-time listener of Jupiter Broadcasting, and I mostly listen to Coder Radio and Last, and I just want to put my 2 cents in on Microsoft's new CEO, which, Mr. Dominic, got to say right now, totally called it.
Yeah.
Totally called it. You totally called it. Last week, even. Boy, did we have good timing on that or what?
Yes.
I think the appointment of Satya Nadella, right? I think it's Nadella, is a good thing, he says. It shows that MS is focusing on services, which is what they need to do if they want to go ahead against Google and Apple. The future of the enterprise and consumer markets is in services, and I think MS knows it. Microsoft has spent a lot of time and money changing their image into a devices and services company, and I don't see that changing, and I don't see this as a sign they are leaving the consumer space and going back on their recent rebranding efforts. Thanks, guys, and keep up the awesome work. Oh, all right. So, what do you think, Mr. Dominic?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I called it because to me it made sense that Nadella, and I actually mentioned this months ago, he made sense because the people electing the new CEO or selecting the new CEO are the shareholders, not the pundits. And the shareholders care about profit. And which division of Microsoft is extremely profitable?
Yeah, cloud, right? You're right. Yeah.
I mean, that to me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, Stephen Elop is kind of a joke, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who really, I mean,
that'd have been fun for the pundits.
Well, unless you thought there was some sort of Game of Thrones style thing going on where he was there to sabotage Nokia.
I wouldn't rule that out.
Well,
I came down pretty hard on this in the last episode. And I've had the week to think about it, and I think I'm falling more down on the side of it's a good thing with a couple of gotchas. I think, and Paul Thurrott, I only caught just a snippet of him talking about this on Windows Weekly, but Paul Thurrott said something that is really true, is that Microsoft is slowly reorganizing itself. The core of Microsoft is going to be services, Azure Cloud, right? And for Microsoft's life, after Windows became a product, it was really centered around Windows. You got a problem, Windows is the solution. Need to build a gaming console, put Windows on it, right? Need to build a phone, put Windows on it. It's Windows, Windows, Windows. Now they're beginning that transition, and I think a lot of that was actually driven by Ballmer, because I'd seen Ballmer in speeches say the future, and even recently, the future of Microsoft is Windows. And I think Satya Nadella is going to complete that refocusing around cloud services and make that the center of the Microsoft world, and everything feeds that beast, not the Windows beast. And Windows, you remember years and years and years ago when I don't remember the details, but remember when Steve Jobs was up on stage and he took the MacBook and like demoted it down to the rest of all the other devices and said the cloud is now the digital hub.
The hub. Yeah.
That's what Microsoft is doing, only without the flashy graphics and marketing speak. That's just what they're actually doing, right? And I think
the problem is, though, I mean, when Jobs did it, he came out, he was confident, and he just did it in one shot. They've been doing it in this weird kind of fumbling, and it almost seems like they were in agreement.
This is the problem, and this is why I came down hard last week, is I feel like they did need a bit of a meat cleaver to come in. It would have been good maybe, even if they wanted to go with an internal guy, maybe they could have hired an outside axeman. This is something companies do a lot, where they'll bring in an efficiency consulting firm. I watched my job get outsourced by the recommendations of an efficiency consulting firm, and they come in and they look at your business and say, all right, well, you need to focus on these things and get rid of this. And the problem is, I've always felt, is if Satya Nadella has been there for 22 years, is he really going to have the nuts to kill projects that have been around during his tenure for maybe 10 years? Is he really going to have the nuts to lay off 1,000 middle managers or more? He won't, right? And the problem is they really do need to streamline and kind of, get a little eye of the tiger in them and be competitive and really move forward, because Microsoft as a services company is up against a huge, huge industry now. It's not the same game. They're not dominant in that area. And the problem is the platforms like OpenStack and Red Hat and VMware is a big player. All of these companies have not only a head start, but also have reputations for reliability, have momentum by the industry, and that's what Microsoft's going up against. It's not the same fight anymore. They're not competing at the desktop level anymore. It's a new game, and I think they got to be a little leaner and a little meaner and a little faster to respond. And I just don't know, with Ballmer on the board and Gates now taking this new technology advisor role, don't confuse yourself. Gates stepping down from the board isn't about reducing his power. It's about changing his power. And I think that's really needs to be underscored.
I disagree with that totally. I think the only reason Gates has this advisor role is kind of to keep everybody calm.
Yeah, I grant you that could be. I'm worried that it's more of a position that gives him meddling potential. Like, for example, I'm worried that he's going to be the anchor that keeps on dragging on this. We got to win big in the consumers. Like, this has been like Gates' personal mission, and I think. Remember how I've commented recently on how Microsoft seems to have this confusing message where they really want to be a consumer space and almost want to shun their enterprise success, and if they just focused on the enterprise, they'd be really well. It's like, what keeps dragging them back to the consumer space? I think it's Gates. I think it's Gates' personal mission as one of the pioneers in the technology industry to make Microsoft a common household company that everybody is using Microsoft products. And I think he still has the potential in this new position to continue to pull the company that way. And when your God is telling you need to do this, the rest of that company is going to listen to him.
Well, I can't agree. I think there's a lot of reasons. So there's a few things that stand out to me. Just getting to the enterprise v consumer thing. This BYOD thing, it's so accepted that people don't really talk about it anymore.
Right.
Except in large enterprises where they've resisted it.
Yeah.
If you believe that BYOD is a real thing, then that enterprise isn't super sustainable other than an enterprise cloud. So then your argument sounds like Microsoft should just focus on Azure, which is great and very successful.
I wouldn't be that dramatic. I wouldn't shim it down that much.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you agree that Azure cuts into SQL Server licensing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, there is a very lean enterprise cloud company inside of Microsoft that could be broken out.
I see Microsoft as the perfect company to capitalize on this. Some stuff is local, some stuff is in the cloud. They meet at a certain point, and we need one solution that scales from our local server up to cloud services. And they're just so perfect to bridge that gap between local and cloud infrastructure. So they don't have to kill their enterprise products, to make that thing. I mean, the two can work. The two can complement each other.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that Microsoft, the enterprise company, is a much smaller company. And I just don't. I don't think they're willing to do that, and I don't think the board or shareholders would tolerate that.
Yeah, I mean, and you can also see how Bing and Xbox even can kind of play into their overall cloud infrastructure strategy, right?
Right. I mean, the new CEO Nadella is saying that he messaged that they're refocusing as a software company, which to me is very interesting because
if that was true, then they should be releasing Office for Android and iOS.
But not only that, right now the world for quote software companies, putting away the software consulting thing right now, is very hard. I mean, prices have been forced down by the market.
How long until Windows is just straight up free?
I don't think it's going to take very long at all.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see an organization as big as Microsoft surviving as a pure software company in this day and age.
Well, they've got these reoccurring revenue models with all of their services, even down to Office 365 that they can sell to enterprises. I mean, that could be profitable. And it seems like if anybody was positioned to do it, it would be them. If you think about it, their start was on making Office for the Mac, right?
Right. They started as a software company for other platforms.
I mean, they've always been a software company, and then they just happened to get their own successful platform to deliver it on.
Well, the Angry Dogs.
See, they agree. They agree with me. I agree, doggies. I agree. So I think I don't believe them when they say that.
The problem is, at the time, you could sell a piece of software for, several $100s.
Right.
And those were in late 70s, early $80. Yeah, they're just going to keep going.
All right, well, why don't we take a break right here? I'll mute you so they can bark it out, and I'll thank DigitalOcean. Now, you guys know that DigitalOcean has been a sponsor now for the Coder Radio program for a little bit. We got a brand new promo code you can take advantage of. It's Coder Radio February. So what is DigitalOcean, and why have I been so freaking happy with my DigitalOcean account? I'll tell you, my friends. DigitalOcean is simple cloud hosting dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up your own cloud server, one that you have full control over. Users can create a cloud server in 55 seconds. I actually was bested recently. My best record is 47 seconds, and pricing plans start at only $5 per month, and that gets you 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, a CPU, and a terabyte of transfer, which is awesome. These are fixed costs, so you know exactly what your run cost is going to be. DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, and Amsterdam. The interface is very simple. Their control panel is super intuitive, and power users can replicate on a larger scale with their straightforward API. DigitalOcean also has a vast collection of tutorials in their community section, but it gets better. You can submit an article to the community, and if it gets published, you'll get $50. So here's how you get started. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code CODARADIOFebruary. That'll give you a $10 credit. You can get that $5 rig for 2 months. I've been using mine for months and months and months now, and so here's a couple of things that I've been having a lot of success with. I've put BitTorrent Sync to distribute additional like supporter files for the Unfilter show on my DigitalOcean droplet, and I just recently loaded up a Yassi search engine on it. And it is so cool to build my own search engine. And what's really awesome is DigitalOcean's pricing plans are really straightforward and upfront. There's no surprises, no gotchas, right? You know, we've all seen some of the other spin up as you need them cloud hosting services where all of a sudden, boom, you got a big surprise in your cost because your CPU ran long, or there was some additional hits that hit your server that you didn't know about, and all of a sudden you just have to pay for it. That's not going to happen. On top of that, DigitalOcean has hourly pricing. So if you need to throw something up there to try it out for a little bit, if you're doing some development work and you just need to run it for a few hours to just do some debugging, throw it up on a DigitalOcean droplet. What's so cool is their droplet system. You can create a template system. Maybe it's like an Ubuntu 1204 rig with Docker on it. You snapshot that so it's set up all the way you want. And then the next time you want to go fire up a rig for a couple of hours, you just restore that snapshot so you save yourself a bunch of time. You try it out and you shut it down and you save the snapshot for later. So go over to DigitalOcean.com, use the promo code CODARADIOFebruary, see what I've been talking about. And yeah, by the way, those SSDs do make a difference. And there's rumor has it there could be a little bit of an announcement coming from DigitalOcean later this week. So go check them out. Check out their community section. They got lots of great tutorials on getting things set up over there. Node.js, MySQL, Apache, PHP, MongoDB, even the basics of Linux, Ruby on Rails, Nginx, all great things, articles and tutorials. They've got a blog section where you can keep up to date on, like, here's a great post right here. Image transfer update. You can now transfer images between regions. That's awesome. Wow. Look at that. You can take a snapshot and then you can distribute it to a different region. That is really cool. So, you know, that is so awesome. Because so for example, I put my my server on the East Coast because I have a node here on the West Coast too, and so it'd be awesome now if I could move that to another spot later on when I need to. And it looks like they're rolling that out. Tons of great stuff over at DigitalOcean. So go over to DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CoderRadioFebruary. That lets them know you heard about it right here on the Coder Radio program, and you appreciate them supporting the Coder Radio show, which of course keeps us on the air. So a big thank you to DigitalOcean, and a big thank you to everybody who uses the promo code Coder Radio February. All right, Mr. Dominic, did you get those dogs under control over there? Did you lock down the dogs?
Yes, I did. The doggers were upset that a bus pulled onto the street.
That's understandable. Oh, look at that. Looks like they do have an IRC channel too. Look at that DigitalOcean. They got pound DigitalOcean on a Freenode. So that's pretty easy to remember. Pretty easy. Pretty nice. So did you have any wrap-up thoughts on the CEO?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been listening to a lot of pundits, reading a lot of posts about this. What do people want him to do?
I think people want to meet Cleaver. I really do.
Well, he can't do that, right?
No, I don't.
The right thing to do would have had make Ballmer do it.
Oh.
I'm sure Ballmer, you can't have the new guy come in and take a katana, especially not to people he's worked with and for 20 years. It would be bad for morale, bad for the stock market.
Yeah.
So obviously they're not dropping consumer. It's my firm belief that you cannot not be vertically integrated in terms of OS software anymore. So if you are going to be a vendor of an operating system in the consumer space, at least, you need vertical integration with the hardware. So if your next thing is let's axe the surface, well, then why don't you just take a different business model with Windows altogether. I mean, sure, you'll make a ton of money in the enterprise for now on the current model, and I would say keep doing that, but that can't be your end game. You're not going to be able to get the licensing fees forever.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Even among my clients, the older companies are all Microsoft shops, at least on the biz dev side, but the younger ones are almost all Google Docs.
Right.
Because for a while it was free, and if you were grandfathered in, you were grandfathered in.
And that is very true. And so I just don't think that doesn't. So just because you make a product though doesn't mean people are going to buy it and use it.
Well, I think the problem is Microsoft reacted to the iPad 4 years after the iPad.
Are they just copying Apple? Is that what it is?
They're not, though. That's the problem. They're copying the product, but I mean, Apple has this attitude of we just don't care, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no other company would make a defective radio cell and go on stage and say, "Listen, you're holding it wrong," right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
what's your problem, jerk?
The problem with Apple is that you need the balls to be Apple, and Apple almost went out of business. I mean, and looking at the market share numbers, they're not doing well compared to Android, if that's your metric in terms of profit. Yes, but
right, yeah, they're doing fine.
I think what's really happening is we're getting back to a place where, even though computers are cheaper than they've ever been, given the economy, computers for the consumer are actually fairly expensive.
Right.
Or a computer that you would want is fairly expensive, right?
Right, yep.
I mean, a sub $1,500 laptop that doesn't suck is basically a Macintosh. I mean, you cannot show me a trackpad, and I've looked on Windows machines that doesn't blow. and I'm not like making fun. I'm just saying, the thing with the Mac is that the software is a sunk cost for the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
On Windows, everybody's trying to get their little piece of the pie, and even when the machines aren't cheap, they feel cheap.
That's why I think that's why it's all about cloud services and reoccurring services. I think the kind of licensing changes. Licensing is no longer buying software and then having a license. Yeah. Licensing is now like leasing it.
Well, that is a very big shift from Microsoft. I mean, they've certainly come a long way in web standards, but I guess I don't trust them not to be tempted to make IE the preferred browser.
Right.
Like I don't. It's hard. I mean, actually, if Microsoft were going bankrupt, this would be an easier process, because then he could come in with a carte blanche and say, "Listen,
right, yeah.
Our doors are gonna close in a year anyway, so why don't I just fight the good fight?"
Yeah.
But now it's like anything you do that might cannibalize their two big businesses, and this is the thing. People talk about Azure, people talk about Xbox, people talk about the Surface. That the rent is paid by Office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is.
And Windows, but Office by a good margin.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people they're actually not the Windows company. I mean, sure, that would be a successful business, but
yeah, no, they're an Office. Yeah.
If you did a pie chart, it's MS Office.
And where's all those sales going to? Business.
That's the problem.
It's all going to business. I mean, I'm sure some of it goes to. I'm sure millions that I'd love to have myself go to just straight to consumers, even selling box copies or Amazon editions or whatever. But the bulk of it is those, eOpen licensed business editions.
Yeah, and I mean that's great, but to me, and this is something I've struggled with. Being a software company, sure, it's more of a consulting company, so it's a little different, but it is really hard to make a profit off of licensing software.
Mm.
It's near impossible. So is everything a web app with a subscription?
Yeah. Or they're doing it even with physical downloads. Like you can download.
Yeah, I tried that. That
Office.
Is super awkward.
Yeah, it really is clunky, isn't it?
That's
yeah. It's always. Have you ever tried Creative Cloud?
I have Creative Cloud. That's also strange.
Yeah, I did it. I tried it too to see if I could get it with Steam streaming, and it's like you download this installer, and it's like super hard to find where you even download it once you've signed up for Creative Cloud. And Office is kind of getting like this too. And Microsoft at least has some compelling deployment technologies behind it, but
I even think Creative Cloud is just because the weights that are being lifted in terms of graphical performance by Adobe can't be done in the browser well, right? For Photoshop, things like that. For the high end people, obviously people like me who are just resizing logos don't need it. I don't know. I mean, for him to
Careful, sir. Careful.
I'm dying.
Don't inhale the coffee. Just
no. Steve Ballmer is actually force choking me right now.
Force choking.
He's like, you will pay for your lack of vision.
Licensing is the future.
Really, they don't think it's the future. It's just hard to cannibalize your own business
when you're making money. And this is why okay. So what you are struggling with right here is why I think they needed an outside perspective.
But you need the board to support it and the shareholders. And if you're a shareholder, do you support something? Here's the other thing.
True.
How about Value Act is now on the board? The corporate rating people. I know we've never talked about this.
No. What is this? Tell me about this.
They bought their way onto the Microsoft board by threatening a hostile takeover by buying a bunch of shares.
And what do they do?
They're like a Carl Icahn type company, right?
Oh, so okay.
Yeah, they get a bunch of shares and they try to force the company to do things that are dangerous long term, but provide short term profits.
Right.
So like every public share investor, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're critical of Gates and Ballmer being there still. I think they're the only things protecting this company because they have an emotional attachment that goes beyond, quarterly earnings.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
I mean, look at what Carl Icahn wanted to do to Dell.
Right. And look how horrible that and how long that got stretched out.
I mean, look what Carl Icahn did to TWA. We could just go back and back into the 80s.
I guess it's like it's the best choice they could have made.
Well, I mean, in my dream world, all these companies realize that the whole public market thing is very, very dangerous if you're trying to take a risk and go private, like Dell did. But it hurt to go private, right?
Yeah.
And I can already read the headlines in the paper. Microsoft shutters 50% of workforce to go enterprise only. That's going to tank the share price. I mean, that's why all these people saying just be an enterprise company. Well, the investors aren't going to sit down for that.
I feel like, and it's probably getting.
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up.
But I feel like that's where they're already making all their money from, anyways. So it's not like it's.
But the problem is they have to worry about that quarterly report and dealing with a revolt in the boardroom.
I don't know. I mean, maybe if you cut some of the online services and things like that, you'd actually end up not losing money.
I'll just add one. Let me just add one more thing, and then we can drop it.
Okay.
And just yes or no. My impression was that Nadella does not have a free hand to act alone, and he's not dictator for life at Microsoft.
My impression too. Yeah.
Right. To me, he's the agent of the board. So this is still going to be this, as it always has been, this very strange designed by committee thing.
And with conflicting priorities.
Yeah. And now with this new troublemaker on the board, they're going to be circling the wagons just to stop him from doing anything.
Give me an interesting couple of years. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's going to be one of those things where we'll look back and go, God, it changed everything, or wow, nothing changed.
If nothing changes, we're going to look back and it's going to be a much smaller company.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's move along.
All right, well, maybe we can help out Nick. This should be an easy one. He says he's 14, and the next few weeks he's going to be picking the subjects for what's called, in England, the GCSEs. I also program as a hobby in my spare time, so naturally I wanted to take some computing as one of my courses. That's what they call it. But it turns out that during the course we learned 3 languages: JavaScript, Visual Basic, and Pascal. I'm still going to pick the course, but what do you make of the languages they have picked? Are there any reasons that you could think Pascal is a good choice? Big fan, Nick. Well, so sometimes it can just be because that's what the instructor likes. Like you hear, well, that's what the instructor knows, and he feels like he can teach you some fundamentals with Pascal, so that's what he's going to do. When I was in school, I was a little bit older than Nick, I think, at the time. We were learning, I think it was QBasic. Remember QBasic? Did you ever do that?
Oh, yeah. No, that was my stuff, QBasic.
Yeah. That's what I was learning back when I was in high school, and let me tell you, has not really been all that beneficial to my career later on, because it all just changes so dang fast.
No, I can't say that QBasic is generally helpful.
No, it was fun.
I can't say that it was fun either.
No, okay, it wasn't fun either. Although I was so proud of myself when I got colors up on the screen that...
I remember I had such a hard time printing text into patterns on QBasic. I hated QBasic. It was like... it was such a pain in the ass. Like,
oh yeah, maybe you could do the graphing with QBasic. Oh
yeah, remember that?
Oh yeah, I do remember now.
The stupid, you got to make like a ghetto spreadsheet. It's like the worst thing ever.
I kind of fall down on, I don't ever feel like spending time learning something is wasted time, because you can usually apply things you learn from that to whatever your next interest is too.
Yeah. Well, QBasic made me love object-oriented programming.
Blink.bass. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh, good old days.
That's right. Things are randomly in caps. I forgot about that.
Yes, they are randomly in caps. Yes.
And it matters if it's not in caps. Let's just bring it back some memories here.
So, Nick, don't worry about it too much, especially since you're already off doing your own thing. I would worry about the kids your age who are not programming in their own spare time in a language they like. And I think you'll find that even with something like Pascal, there could be a few lessons you can apply if you're willing to seek them out.
Well, I mean, we've been making fun of QBasic, but yeah, the whole if-else thing. All languages have certain features.
Yeah.
The one issue I had going from QBasic to something more object-oriented was, object-oriented is really, really different.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was this temptation, at least for a year with me, to write everything procedurally.
Oh, the good old days. The good old days.
No. And there was only one color blue, obnoxious navy, for the terminal.
Well, so Nick, let us know how it goes, sir. It is not as bad as it sounds. All right, now this next one is our last email of the day, and then we got a little hoopla. And for those of you listening live, 10:30 after Coda Radio, BSD Now is going to be starting. They're doing it on Monday today, so people that are watching live get double the entertainment.
Oh no! What time do they start?
After 10:30. So when we wrap, we got 40 minutes.
We got some time.
Yeah. We'll probably be done before they start, but we can do a little post show and keep the room warm until they get here. So Anonymous writes in, says, "Hello, I work at insert major international tech company here on a product with quarterly release cycles." Okay, what could that be? A major international tech company with a product with quarterly release cycles. He says,
$50 says Booz Allen.
And the quarterly release is Snowden's. We use Agile 3-week sprints with hardening before each release.
$100 says Booz Allen.
There's recently been an executive order that, due to some cloud deployment and industry movement,
$5,000 says Booz Allen.
He says, now get this, products should move towards weekly releases. So dude's going from quarterly releases to weekly releases.
That's going to go great.
Which is going to require an overhaul of pretty much everything, how we do everything. Is there any way we could go down with this without it being a master cluster F? So this huge Chris, change.
I think we can make phone calls with more confidence in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or we'll, again, not be able to purchase health insurance. No, that's going to suck, dude.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Here's what I was thinking. If this would work, I don't know. I don't know what Anonymous's timeline is. But if he has a little bit of time, maybe they could start on something else they work on that's smaller and transition and experience all of the pain with this smaller scope, get everything worked out, and then apply lessons learned there.
They got an executive order.
Yeah.
You can't do that. They're like...
You think that's a Barry order, or do you think that just means like the CEO?
Okay, person writing in. If you wrote executive order and did not mean Barry...
We're thinking,
no company uses executive order.
He's a jackass.
Thank you, Barry.
So I if you can, Anonymous, that would be... Otherwise, this is going to be one of those really rough transitions where you're going to need to maybe take up the practice of mindfulness and get yourself a meditation pillow because you're going to need to calm down.
I would actually put down the coffee, pick up the chai tea.
Yeah, switch to tea for a little while and get some.
This is gonna suck.
And get some sleep. Seriously, that'll really help.
We moved from what were roughly 3 to 4 week cycles and to 2-week cycles, and that was a bloodbath.
Quarterly. He's going from quarterly releases
to weekly. It's gonna be amazingly awful.
The Docker project just announced version 0.8, and they said they're going to go to monthly, and it's not feature-based. They're not going to do it feature-based. It's going to be just a monthly cadence, and they're going to try to make sure that everything's production-ready before it goes to the master branch. And did you see also the other thing Docker just did is they added support to spin up a Docker instance on Mac OS X?
Good.
Yeah, and so I think that means you need a couple extra components to install because there's like a little Linux VM, like a tiny little VM that runs.
Linux.
Well, I mean, that's the point of Docker. But the idea is, like, now you could potentially run like a Docker instance on your Mac, build it all up, and then move it right up to a Linux server, and Bob's your uncle. It just runs.
And I think Alan Jude is like, why aren't you just using BSD?
Well, probably. Yeah, that's probably true. Why don't we take a moment right here and thank our last sponsor for this week's show, and it's been a long-time sponsor. You guys know him. You guys love him. It's GoDaddy.com. Go over to GoDaddy.com because guess what? We got a new .com deal for you. $2.95 coder will get you a .com for $2.95. So because of that, I bought a couple of domains last night with the coder $2.90. It's so great. So you can get your first domain for like $2.95. Additional domains after that are like super cheap. They're still discounted, like $9 or something like that. I went through and I did a whole bunch of shopping. It feels good. Like when you think of a really good domain and nobody else has grabbed it yet, you're like, oh my God, I just got an awesome .com. That was totally me last night. So go over to GoDaddy. They're the world's #1 domain name registrar for a reason, and they've been just making things better and better over there all the time. They've got a new express checkout system you can take advantage of. They got a great new streamlined purchasing process. They got some really funny videos from the Super Bowl. You can still catch those on their website as well, including that story about Gwen, who quit her job during the Super Bowl. You can find out more about that. Go over to GoDaddy.com and use that promo code 295coder to get yourself a .com for $2.95. We get these just for limited times, for little windows of time, and you guys can take advantage of it right now. So go over there and get that done. And you know, when a .com is $2.95, I've been recommending buy it now, and even if you don't have an immediate use for it, forward it to another web property, forward it to your crazy Google Plus URL, forward it to whatever. GoDaddy has a very straightforward admin panel, and in there, it's click, put in the address you want that .com to forward to, say if you want it temporary or permanent, if you want it masked or not masked, and then hit submit. And now, that .com, you didn't have to change any DNS settings, you didn't have to have any hosting set up, you just can point that .com to any URL you want. It's like way better than a standard web shortener because it's your .com, and you can also change it. So one of the things I've done in the past with my forwarding is if you go to jblive.fm and jblive.am, those forward you to the 128 kilobit MP3 stream and the 64-bit kilobit stream, respectively. And one day, our audio stream was down. So I just logged into my GoDaddy control panel, set the forwarder to a temporary stream server, and I didn't have to have the users go to anything else. All of the apps that we had coded that have jblive.fm and am automatically redirected to the new source. We didn't have to push out new versions of our applications to the Android Play Store. It just all works on the back end. And when the stream came back up, I logged back into my GoDaddy control panel and forwarded it back to the original source. And with $2.95, you can always find something to do with that .com. So go over to GoDaddy.com and use the promo code 295coder, 295coder, when you check out to get a .com for $2.95. And a big thank you to GoDaddy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. So we have a couple of hoopla things. You want to do one of them or two of them kind of quick? Like there's like two really good ones we could talk about this week. We could do both if you want. What do you think, Mr. Dominic? You feel like talking about Paper? Or maybe Flappy Bird? I don't know if I'm not totally up on all the Paper stuff. I know that there was an existing iOS app named Paper, and it was like a pretty well-known drawing application. And I guess there's another app named Paper. I'm not totally up to date on what the story is there, but then Facebook comes out and they release their Paper app, and it's like Flipboard for Facebook essentially. And I guess they knew the name existed, but they chose to use Paper anyways. So do I kind of have this right so far?
You do. So this is kind of like a pond, right? Facebook's obviously the great white shark. Paper is like a tilapia chilling around.
Yeah.
And that a third Paper, the little company, was like a guppy. So Facebook is basically throwing its weight around, and now, Paper by 53 is complaining. Problem is, Paper did the same thing to the other small company. So, like in every legal case, it's whoever is willing and has more money to spend is winning.
So Facebook in this case.
Right. The larger issue that I think is more important is if you name your product a standard English word.
Like Windows.
But you don't have billions of dollars to defend that with.
You mean, yeah, I know what you mean.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't care because there are so many little software projects, so many trademarks on things that were never released. Naming stuff is hard now, and frankly, even if you get the trademark, you could lose it. Someone, this is a reality of the business. You have to get trademarks, and if there's a dispute, you can either do what's called a coexistence agreement, where somebody pays somebody, or somebody pays nobody, and you both just agree to leave each other alone.
I believe Apple and Cisco have something like that for the iPhone trademark.
Right. Well, even Marco Arment had that with somebody for Instapaper.
Oh, I didn't know it.
So this is so common that a company with venture funding and the money that Paper has to not know how to do this is ridiculous. Like it's so stupid. And then to play all this who me crap when they did the same thing to a small company.
What about just good human common, concern for your common developer, where it sounds like Facebook knew all along this Paper app existed.
So there's that. Yeah, I mean, nobody comes out looking clean here.
No.
The thing I'm trying to counter is the narrative that Paper by 53 are the good guys. So let me tell you what Paper did in response to this by Facebook. They filed the trademark the day Paper by Facebook was launched.
Oh.
Which makes it a very, again, I'm not a lawyer, but according to some legal opinions I've read from folks online who are our lawyers, that is not the strongest trademark you could file. 2 reasons. It's an English word, and you filed it after your competitor had launched, which is kind of not, and I understand filing a trademark costs money. Defending it costs money. Like, for a small company, it's probably not worth it all the time. But, one of the things is we get all these emails, Chris, from folks who want to go indie, but they want to avoid all the legal crap and the business crap.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's the reality. If you're even an indie consultant, someone someday is going to sue you. Or someone someday is going to try and use your name or your product name or something.
Right.
You're going to be dealing with being basically a business person, right? And there's going to come a day where someone's going to sue you. You're going to be in the right, but you're going to pay them anyway.
Ooh, that makes me
because
sick.
It is cheaper to pay them to go away than to fight the lawsuit. And unfortunately, the longer you're in business and the more exposure your business gets, the more this is going to happen.
What a crappy system. I agree with Lamp in the chat room. It's a real crappy system.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I'm saying, if this is a problem for you, this whole Paper thing, write your congressman. You basically want trademark and tort reform. Now, you want to hear a radical suggestion? Maybe not. Chris does not want to.
Oh, no, I was just waiting for you to say it.
Let's not have trademarks on generic English words, period.
Well, I was thinking, what I was thinking of is you have code and journal in...
right.
I mean, those are pretty generic. Code and journal are pretty... Now, together, they're not so common. I'll grant you that. But it seems like you could be... it's not that far of a stretch of the imagination to find yourself in this position. What if...
It is a little harder for that to happen to me because it's a name of a product that's a composite of 2 words.
Right, I know.
So now if the product's name was Code, I'd have a problem.
Yeah, like Code Log. What about that? Or Code Keeper? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the closer to a common word you get, the more problems you have. I mean, and this is an area that gets weird because then there's such a thing as copyright protection versus trademark protection. And I'm not suggesting the system's good. I'm just suggesting that if you're leaving your employer to be an indie developer, these are the kind of things you have to worry about.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is Paper doesn't even seem like a good name for Facebook. It doesn't even seem like it's... I don't think of... You know what I mean?
It's an interesting naming choice. I think they were going for a newspaper. But... Yeah, I mean, Zane in the chat room has a good point. This is why a lot of startups are now naming themselves English words spelled incorrectly, because that's a much easier trademark to defend.
Yeah, it's easy to get the domain and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about, speaking of crazy names, let's talk about Flappy Bird. Just this whole thing kind of felt like it's just blown up since our last show. Out of nowhere, Flappy Bird becomes a thing, and it sounds like the guy might have goosed his ratings early on, and then that kicked off this whole discovery, and then it just built on top of that.
So there's some suggestion that he paid one of these services to boost his rating, which
late last year,
which I've never done, but is extremely common.
Yeah, and then that kind of broke him into a threshold of a certain amount a day, which then made him show up on some charts, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And people probably are familiar with Flappy Bird at this point. It's this impossible to beat game.
I haven't played it, to be honest with you.
I haven't either, because it looks like a bad time.
Yeah, it looks really crappy to me.
Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna really hate myself if
To me, this entire story is less about the game and more about, wow, if you make the top of the charts, you can have a pretty crappy thing and do well.
Well, let me ask you this. So, do you think this is going to kick off a whole new generation of tap type games that just, are total crap games that people are going to charge?
I think him pulling it. I mean, I'm sure there is someone right now trying to find a dev to clone it.
Well, in the Play Store, there's tons of clones, and tons and tons of clones in the Play Store.
Yeah, because the problem is, this game doesn't look terribly hard to develop, right? I mean, you could do.
No, he said he did it in a day. He said he did it in a day. So my question though to you is, what do you think about this whole he's pulled it thing because of the response? Is this a marketing gimmick? So he's pulled it out of the app stores now. He took it down from iOS and Android, and said that he just couldn't take all of the hate, even though the game was generating $50,000 a day in ad revenue.
Yeah, I would take the hate.
$50,000 a day in ad revenue. You can believe that? $50,000? What? That's according to a report on The Verge, which is blowing my mind right now. For a crappy game, it took him a day. A crappy game, it took him a day, dude.
That's a lot of money.
47,000 reviews in the App Store. Been downloaded 50 million times.
It's a weird situation.
The other story here that I think is interesting is, you know how there's been this meta discussion about games that prompt you to rate them, and it's really annoying and interrupts you?
Yeah, did you see what EA did? Which is amazing.
No.
So on their new Dungeon Keeper game, they put up the rating dialogue. How would you rate this game? 1 to 4 stars, 5 stars. If you tap 1 to 4, it just brings you to like nothing, like a little in-app feedback thing. If you tap 5, it pushes you back to the App Store.
Funny. Well, so what this guy did, and I think this is part of his success, is on the start screen, you've got start, score, and rate. So he's not obnoxious about the rating. It's just a little button on the first screen. And I think it might even suggest like some crazy stuff that you put in there. I don't know. Like some, this game's horrible. I hate it so much. 5 stars. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated by something that, even if it was manipulated a little bit at the beginning, like it catches fire like this, the guy makes a ton of money, and then to see somebody pull it, this whole thing is really, it's been fascinating to watch, and it's only really possible with this App Store economy that we have now, this App Store marketplace, where something can just blow up like this all over the world, and we can all link to it, and we all download it, and then it can just be pulled immediately. So like if you didn't get Flappy Bird, you're not getting Flappy Bird, and there's nothing you could do about it because these new app stores, it's gone. I
have a feeling that he pulled it. I mean, I kind of feel bad for the guy, to be honest.
I think it's a marketing ploy.
I don't. I could see a lot of people being super nasty.
Yeah. No, I've seen some of the tweets.
Especially since it came out that he gamed the system in the beginning, which is something that all large companies in the app space certainly do.
Yeah.
But the problem is large companies, even if you work for them, well, someone in marketing did that. It's not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a personal dude, it's, having said that, I don't know. I mean, to me, the story here is that it's a non-story, right? It just proves that gaming the App Store still works as long as your app is free.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. That's kind of what I wanted to get to the bottom of is now neither one of us have played it, so maybe we're not in a good position to talk about this, but it seems like at a certain point, you don't reach that volume. I mean, maybe that initial goosing, but then it seems to have legitimately had an actual viral spreading. Like people
the issue has always been once you hit one of the top charts, you're golden no matter what. That's why getting featured by Apple is always something that is really helpful because it puts you on that front page.
Yeah, I guess that you think that's all it took is just he got there and then one thing led to another. But would people really be sharing and rating as much? I mean, you saw 47,000 reviews or something like that. I mean, would they be compelled to give it that many ratings and reviews if they didn't enjoy it in some way?
I'm not suggesting that nobody enjoyed it. I'm suggesting that if he didn't goose it, he wouldn't have done well.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see what you're saying there, and you're right.
I mean, it's a lot of people try to say apps are bad, apps are good. To be honest, most apps are bad in some ways and good in others because they have limited budgets, right?
Yeah.
A lot of apps that are super highly designed, for instance, are a lot slower than they ought to be because that design takes resources.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of apps that look like dog shit tend to run really fast and really efficiently.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest thing to take away from this is not surprising. People are still dicks on the internet. So if you do anything publicly, you're going to get nasty feedback. And still proves that Apple made an attempt to stop this kind of gaming and it didn't work.
Couldn't they have done more? In both the paper case and in this, like, seems like...
So Apple probably shouldn't do more in the paper case, right?
I don't know. I mean, wouldn't the fix just be you the first come, first serve? You get in there, you register your name, and once you've registered that name, nobody else can register the same name?
So you can do an app where on your iPhone it shows up as, let's say we call the app Dog, is what it looks like on your iPhone, but I could actually call that for the App Store Dog by Fingertip Tech.
Okay.
So what happens is the display name and the actual name.
So there is actually a rule like that. I see, but you can just get around it.
You can just change it.
Gotcha. Well, all right, very good. Yeah, so Peacemaker in the chat room says that game was totally viral. My Facebook feed was filled with screenshots. You know, I did see a lot of screenshots on Google Plus too. A lot of people talking about it. That's actually how I heard about it first, was on Google Plus. And then,
yeah, I mean, this guy, he certainly deserves the success more than Candy Crush does, right? I mean, what he did is...
Speaking of trademarking common names.
Yeah, Candy and Saga.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Why did they skip Crush?
No kidding, right?
So maybe because it's not a verb in that case.
Righteous, dude. Righteous.
I mean, you have a trademark on all of Jupiter, right?
Of course. Yeah, I'm suing the planet right now as we speak.
Right, so like Bandai, every time they play like a Sailor Moon episode, has to pay you, right? That's how this works.
Yeah, I'm also going out and getting old jazz artists too and trying to sue their families because there's lots of jazz songs that have Jupiter in the title. So it's a large enterprise. Actually, that's how I finance the production of all these shows.
Well, it's kind of like Windows Phone, right? It's financed off the patents from Android. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's great business.
Yeah, that's how I do it. It works.
Oh, and I've, of course, received another letter from my friendly patent trolls.
Oh, really?
Yes. They're wonderful people.
Yeah. I'm getting a little worried about the podcast thing. I don't know if you saw this, but the podcast patent troll has... gotten a list from the is trying to get a list from the EFF of everyone who's donated to the Save Podcasting Fund.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, they want the names of everybody. It's getting a little creepy.
So have you donated to that fund?
I think so. Yeah, I did. Yeah, because I don't want podcast. I don't want somebody. He's troll. What the patent is the ability to embed a media file in an RSS feed.
Right.
But people were doing that years ago. It seems to me prior art's pretty clear in this case, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It just costs a lot of money to take the lawsuit.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Dominic, was there anything else we want to touch on this week?
No, I think we should let the BSD guys have a go.
All right, very good. Well, we'd love to hear from you, and we just read through a whole bunch of feedback, so we need yours again. Stock up our inbox by going over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and then clicking that contact link and choosing Coda Radio from the drop-down. You can also join us live over at jblive.tv, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern on a Monday. Or join us in the subreddit at coderadio.reddit.com. Mr. Dominic, where should folks find you throughout the week?
DominicM.com.
Very nice, very nice. Follow me on the Twitter, if you would, twitter.com/ChrisLAS, and check out jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, and join us on Sunday for Linux Action Show 300. Why not? What, you got something else going on? Jeez. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coda Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.